Hello and welcome to the Hash Rugby Chat podcast. I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, a website, podcast, Twitter account and YouTube channel, bringing you the best in rugby predictions and opinion. Don't forget to subscribe on your favourite podcasting apps. We drop into your phone every week, or actually every night at the moment. And also, please leave us a 5-star review. Other stars are available, but why would you want to do that? If you'd like to watch what happens behind the covers, the show's live on YouTube at 8 p.m. New Zealand time every Tuesday. And be careful because next the clocks will change this weekend, Easter weekend. So Herman, no, sorry, we haven't gone back to the daylight savings yet, but we will do very, very soon. Where am I? I've gone lost. I'm lost. That's my whole patter has just gone out the window. You can also join the discussion. Actually, no, I'm not putting the questions on there, so you can't join the discussion on Twitter. You can, but no one will know what the questions are because I haven't posted them. But anyway, joining me this week is Ashwin. How you doing, sir?
Oh, not bad, not bad. Living the dream.
I can tell by your jersey. I was going to say the West Stand Massive, but the West Stand is closed for Auckland NPC games, so that must be the North Stand?
Yes, it is. It is the North Stand. Well, it used to be, back in the day, it used to be called the North Stand. These days, they refer to it to make money as the ASB stand.
Ah, well, there you go. So everyone, please do bank with ASB. I do. And hopefully they'll sponsor us as well. Or you can bank with or there are other banks are available too, since none of them sponsor us. But there we go. Oh yeah, personally I do ASB. There we go. So ASB stand, fantastic. What a great bank they are. And also joining us from Chiang Mai, who doesn't probably bank with ASB as they probably aren't out there in Thailand, is Herman. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, Paul. How are you?
As you can probably tell, a few beers in and fantastic. Over the moon. Wonderful.
Yeah.
So this week we'll be talking about Super Rugby like we do every week, actually. We always talk about Super Rugby and until the internationals come around, then we'll talk about internationals. But yes, Super Rugby and particularly round 6. And so kicking off on that then, what was your favourite moment of the weekend, Herman?
Easily Asos try for Hurricanes. That looked like something from a highlight reel from NFL films. And I think we're going to see that try many times in years to come.
I think so. I mean, Ben Lamb, to be fair to him, on the other wing, he had a couple of very good tries as well. So he was a bit unlucky there not to have try of the match stolen from him there by Arso coming on for his little sort of 20-minute cameo or whatever it was. But yeah, Lamb was also good.
Yeah. I totally agree.
And I think actually the difference between the Highlanders and the Hurricanes was moments of moments of brilliance by their wingers or by their players rather than any other pieces. And Ashwin, you popped up there comments about the Highlanders or Hurricanes versus Highlanders.
Yeah. The Arso try is the try for the weekend. Obviously, the Hurricanes getting the job done over the Highlanders with assistance from the Auckland wingers. Hey, and how appropriate! I'm wearing the right top.
I was going to say for our international listeners, why don't you let them know what the jersey you are wearing?
Yeah, so the jersey I'm wearing tonight is a Auckland our provincial championship jersey. And quite conveniently, Vince Arso, who still does play for the Auckland team in the provincial championship, and Ben Lamb, who was from Auckland in, I think last year he played for Wellington, but made it into the Sevens team out of Auckland.
If I may add for our international listeners too, this is like the new black, like the most fresh excuse from the Auckland rugby community, like why we are not performing. This is the reason we all stand going behind right now. Players from Auckland move to other provinces. That's the only reason. Nothing wrong with Auckland rugby. No.
Yeah, Danny says right. Yeah, that Vince Arso dive was something else. It was very special, and I did love it when they said, "Oh, is he in touch?" Well, he can't be. His feet are above his head.
The interesting thing with that try was the comment. I think it was only the commentators. I don't think it was anybody else. Was trying to get Ben Smith yellow carded for the tackle on Arso, and it's just like, no, he's just hurdled Ben Smith, and Ben Smith just made some incidental contact with him.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we've actually talked about on Hash Rugby Chat before. Is are you allowed to jump over a tackler and whether you're and whether that's considered safe or not, or whether. Yeah, I think the jumping over the tackler was apparently never actually a law. It was just considered dangerous, but you get away with that if you're actually going for the if you're going for a try. So it was considered dangerous play to hurdle or to jump into a tackle.
Yeah, the only time I've ever seen that called is when they hurdle a ruck, because I've seen that a few times where the attacking teams hurdled a ruck to score the try, and the ref said, "Nah, penalty."
Danny Tan says they always actually improve once joining the Canes. No, I think they always just improve when leaving Auckland. Or leaving the Blues, actually, rather than Auckland. Auckland's fine. It's just the Blues. Actually, no, Auckland hasn't been fine, but Auckland. Sorry. Auckland this coming season has got Graham Henry back. So, are you expecting big things, Arshwin?
You know, I think we talked about it last week when we had old Jess on, and it's just like, you know, or maybe couple of weeks ago, is the fact is that we've become so used to underperforming that we now wait. If you wait for the results on the field.
I'm not talking about the Blues. I'm talking about the
Auckland Rugby's the same. Auckland Rugby's the same. The reality is the fact is that the player depth is there. It's you know, I sit back. I mean, we're digressing from Super Rugby, but I look back and I think that the preparation that they put in place for the team is shocking. They usually get the team that's going to be playing NPC Championship Rugby together basically a week before, and you look at the other provincial championship teams, and they've got their teams forming 2 to 3 weeks at least before and playing warm-up games and everything. So, yeah, look, as I said, it's all good and well. We've got Lama Ramir, I think. Oh, geez, I've forgotten his name. I can picture him, but another fellow Wellingtonian of Alamas, and then you got Graham Henry there. You got Tassessa Levier, not Tassessa Levier, but his brother. So Mr. Levier, because I can't remember his first name. Joining it, so they've got a good coaching group together, but you know, at the end of the day, we'll wait for the results on the field to see whether they deliver.
Paul, I want to ask a question to both of you, because I know both of you care about Auckland Rugby.
Take your mic closer.
About Auckland Rugby, because I'm watching some old YouTube clips about Auckland Rugby, and it seems like it was the pride and passion of a city. We're selling out Eden Park like 40,000-50,000 for MPC games or whatever we were called back then. How can it? Where did it all go so wrong? And is there still a chance that people still can care about rugby in Auckland? Because in a way, it's the capital of the most rugby-mad country in the world. It's the most densely populated area in the most rugby-crazy country.
It's not very densely populated. Everyone still tries to get their own quarter-acre section. So,
but you know what I mean. You know what I mean. I mean, it's.
I know what you mean. I'm trying to set the picture for people from outside New Zealand. Auckland is the lowest rise large city in the world. Everyone lives in one-story houses. That's why it's so big. It's the size of London with something like an eighth or whatever the population. So
1.5 mil.
1.5 mil. It's next to nobody really lives there. Until you move down to where I am. And if you saw my tweet earlier, where we're having pumpkin growing competitions in the office, it shows you that I live in the sticks. Auckland it's a large area, but it's a small population city. And so trying to get to that game is difficult because public transport isn't great. And so trying to get to a game, you basically have to drive. Parking isn't wonderful around there. I mean, sure, Arshwin and I, we know the secret places where we can find a parking space, but for your casual fan, parking around there is a nightmare. They close off lots of areas. It's not available for parking, so you end up parking miles away and having to walk to the ground. It's not an easy place to get to. Whereas your sofa is very easy to get to. You have much cheaper beer, you have much better food, and the view is also better, and you don't get rained on. And kids love their rugby, but they love watching it from the sofa,
from the couch. Yeah, and just on that crowd side, you go back, you didn't have the coverage that you do now as well, sort of thing. The passion has gone though. You know, to answer Herman's question, the passion's gone. People have been asleep at the wheel in terms of administration. And that's what's basically happened. That's the key thing, is that people have been asleep at the wheel of the administration, and now we have what we have. Will it ever be back to the glory days? I doubt it. Apart from at Super Rugby level, there's a possibility. But rugby in Auckland has got some major issues, and they've been lucky. The biggest competition, which is the opposite code with the Warriors, have been as equally effective as the Blues have, and so they've gotten away with it. This year, the opposition code started with 3-0 on the trot. If the Warriors become successful, rugby in this city's got big major problems at the moment. By default, rugby's the sport. Kids still play it, etc., etc. But these days it's a Kardashian world we live in.
Kids still play it and kids still love it because of the All Blacks, not because of the Blues or Auckland. It's all around the All Blacks.
That's true. But you look at a big catchment area is South Auckland, and reality is that if the All Blacks don't have as many games on the TV for the kids to follow with the All Blacks, they're not going to the games because they can't afford the tickets. I think the tickets are affordable. It's just the fact that parts of society can't afford them. That's just a fact of life. But I don't think when you look at it, compare them to the tickets to Twickenham, they're affordable. But that's another story. But at the end of the day, the Warriors are on the screens regularly. They're seeing them regularly. Their sponsorship is much better, at a much better level in terms of engaging with those South Auckland kids in particular. So, hey, look, the Warriors become successful, even All Blacks will then start to have competition in the city. And it's already there. It's already there. As I said, it's just lucky that both teams have performed equally well.
We used to go. I used to live around by Sylvia Park. You go to the mall there. It's one of the bigger malls in Auckland, and you'll see people walking around in Warriors jerseys. You never see anybody walking around in a Blues jersey. You never see anyone walking around in an Auckland jersey. You occasionally see the odd All Blacks jersey, but you see more Warrior jerseys. And that's not even South Auckland. That's East Auckland, or East or Central. So, I was amazed that you see more league jerseys around the place than you do union jerseys. Most definitely.
But if I may add, then, like a follow-up question to that, do you feel is there still potential to make rugby union big in Auckland again?
With the Blues, won't be with Auckland, because the other thing is that now Auckland's basically because of the not so, the word's probably a bit strong, demise of Auckland rugby at that provincial level. You've now got there used to be still people that lived on the shore, North Shore, who have North Harbour, that still followed Auckland rugby. But obviously now they've got a team that's just as strong, or Auckland hasn't been, and they've drifted off to North Harbour. Stronger. Well, they were last year. Well, no, they came up anyway. And then you got Counties Manukau in the south. So you've actually got, in the 1.5 million catchment area, you split up amongst three teams that make up Auckland.
No, but also, I mean, let's be honest. If you look around the major cities, if you look at the crowds that Waikato get, that Wellington get, that Christchurch get, and that also Otago get, none of them get decent crowds because they have got. If you're going to go watch rugby, you're going to go watch Super Rugby. Yep. Now, if you go look at the crowds that teams like Taranaki, like they can pull in Bay of Plenty or Hawke's Bay, up in Northland, even, and also down in sort of and also Tasman, and maybe even Southland to a certain degree, they don't have the Super Rugby competition. If they're lucky, they get one game a year in some of those places. This year, none of them do. The only people that do is there's one in Rotorua. So that's, I've gone blank as to that is. No, that's not Manawatu. That's
Rotorua.
Rotorua
is Rotorua. Bay of Plenty.
Bay of Plenty. That's it. So Bay of Plenty. Every other province outside the Super Rugby provinces don't get Super Rugby for rugby. So the NPC is their top level rugby. So people will go and watch it. People will only go and watch the top level. The second level down, they won't. So Auckland, no chance.
What about the Blues? What about the Blues then?
Oh, the Blues can do, but
the Blues can do if they got to get successful.
They got to get successful, and they got to sort out their marketing. Their marketing is woeful.
Marketing's rubbish.
Yep.
But and I've raised it with them. There was a couple of years ago, there was a chap called James Rugby, give him big props there, who was doing good things on social media. And since he's gone, then it's basically just the social media is just shocking. The fan engagements, is fan engagement is done by a supporter basically who runs a Blue supporters page who that operates better than the official channels on social media, for example.
Oh, way better. But yeah, so we both know Paul.
Yep.
Yeah, not me, Paul, a different Paul, who runs
Blue supporters for life.
That's right, Blue Supporters for Life. Great. Yeah, if you're on Facebook and are a Blue supporter and you don't know about it yet, well, get yourself down there. It's where all the fans are. Now, they sit in the East Stand, and I think they have a bad view where they sit, so I don't sit with them. But I used to. So
they've actually relocated.
And then that's why I relocated to the West. Well, actually, Paul used to sit in the West Stand. It was only about 2 seasons ago he moved. But anyway, so they sit at grass level, and the players go over and see them and say hello and stuff. But it's an awful view. That's why I don't sit with them. But they're a great crowd, and you're right. They do a much better job than the official social media from Blues.
Yeah. Herman, to answer your question in a nutshell, Auckland rugby is just broken. Is the easiest way to put it. Whether it's the Blues or Auckland at NPC level, it's just broken. It really is, and that's an administration thing.
Can it be fixed?
Oh, of course
it can. Of course it can.
You still believe. You still believe. That's what I want to know.
Yeah,
but not with the people who are there doing it.
No,
they need to total clear out, top to bottom.
Yep, top to bottom. Yep.
The coaches are fine. The players are fine. The administration is useless.
I mean, we're sucking up a lot of time on one topic, but to finish it off, look, obviously once we lost to the Stormers, there was obviously a lot of venting going on about this player and that player, and obviously Tana as the coach. And I made the comment, look, we've for years we've replaced the coaches, we've replaced the players. It's not the coaches, it's not the players. It starts any company, and all this. It's professional rugby as a company. It starts from the top down.
Yeah,
that's it. Simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, moments still on question one. Moments from the weekend. Arsha?
Yeah, look, I mean, as I said, for me it was the Vince Arso try.
We're back there again.
Yeah, we're back there. But there was obviously some fantastic touches by Damien McKenzie in the Sunwolves game. Hard to read that Sunwolves game.
He gets given too much time against Sunwolves.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to throw in there that the try right near the end for the Reds, that was a wonderful run.
Oh, I saw the highlights of that run. Absolutely fantastic. And I was just thinking, and we obviously saw the questions coming through, and it's just like, ooh, is that a candidate for the try of the weekend? But yeah, it is a great try. There was a few really good tries this weekend. Obviously, we said in one game there was 3 of them. So yeah, there was some good ones, but I'm still sticking with the Arso try. Because there was the other thing was that there was a 1-2 in that play to the line. There was a 1-2,
but no 3. Yes, and tonight will be full of bad jokes because just because I can, basically. So the Lions obviously got beaten by the Blues. Only beaten Sunwolves by 2 points. Got lost by 14 points. The Jaguares. I mean, are they still the top team in South Africa?
Well, sort of, I would say. I mean, it looks like maybe Stormers could have something to say about it, but by the look of the way of the Sharks and Bulls are playing, yes, the Lions are still the top team in South Africa.
Oh, that's sad because you're basically saying that they're the top team in South Africa by default, the fact that everyone else is worse than them rather than that they're any good.
Well, I'm honest.
Yeah, I'm going to say, look, it's a hard one. It is a tough question you put up there because the Lions have played 3 poor games in a row now, effectively. And the Stormers have actually, had a tough road trip, come back, beaten the Blues, and then beaten a handy Red side. They beat the Jaguares. Did they beat the Jaguares? They did, didn't they?
They beat the Jaguares week before,
yeah, so, I mean, maybe it was the extra vaccination that the Reds needed in London that stuffed them up. But, the Stormers, beat a handy Red side. So I think this week, Lions against Crusaders, which we'll talk about a bit later, that's going to be a very telling. At home, Lions, they got to step up. Otherwise, question marks about whether they are the top team in South Africa.
Yeah, before you started talking, the answer was going to be yes, of course they are. They've just had a couple of bad games. But when you think about it, the fact that the Stormers have had their Australasia tour out the way. The Bulls have had their Australasia tour out the way. They've had their hard games already. The Blues, sorry, not the Blues. The Lions haven't. The Lions have still got to come over here and lose those 3 games or so that they have over here. So that's going to be. To be fair, the Lions are the best touring side out of South Africa by a long stretch. So they could actually do well. But with those 2 sides, they've already had their hardest games out the way. It's all downhill from here on inwards. It gets easier. Not so much for the not so much for the Lions. The Sharks have had their tour as well, haven't they?
Well, Sharks are still on tour. I think they got 2 New Zealand games left.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. So the Sharks are on tour now. So they're going through their rough patch now, and then it will be easier for them. But I mean, yeah, the Sharks have only had 1 win so far this season and a draw at home. So really, it's definitely between the Storms and the Bulls to challenge the Lions. But it does look it's definitely much more interesting than I thought than we were expecting it to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
yep.
Okay, I mean, I always want to say about Stormers, even the games we lost against the Crusaders and Highlanders, I thought they looked pretty good in patches in those 2 games too.
Yep, they did.
Crusaders, they basically gave away the game the first 20 minutes, but then for the last 60 minutes, they competed really well with the Crusaders.
And then the following week, they backed it up against the Highlanders. They actually put in a pretty good competition against Highlanders. They got hit pretty hard by some injuries in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're seeing that actually. The depth is such a big thing in this competition. We've had with quite a few teams being hit by injuries. I mean, the Rebels lost that game against the Waratahs because they lost Damien Hallett-Petty at the back, and they put Hodge there. It's a bad coaching decision. We've seen the Sunwolves lose one of their home games because they lost like 3 of their backs in the first 20 minutes. I mean, they were on a losing wicket,
hiding to nothing.
Hiding to nothing. And we've had seen so many things there where they've where we've seen teams sort of have injuries early in the game that you can see they've changed the direction of the game. The Crusaders as well, when they lost Crotty and Whitelock early doors to head knocks. So headlocks? No, interesting guy. Anyway, yes, the new MMA version of rugby. With that, you've got early injuries have impacted quite a few games this season and have definitely been a contributing factor.
Mate, this weekend for the Lions, they've got to step up, because if they don't step up this week against the Crusaders, then they're going to have a tough road for the rest of the competition.
Agree.
They've got to get that morale up.
Yeah, I have like a small mitigating factor, maybe why the Jaguars played pretty good in this last round. I read on Friday afternoon, we finally decided with Argentina and Las Pumas, we're going to change the laws for eligibility for their players. We're going to start picking players from Europe again. So all of a sudden, you're not the Puma just by being a Jaguar anymore. And that changed this Friday, and all of a sudden they were all performing. Wonder why?
You think they had a bit of motivation there?
So yeah, we won't be. Yeah, and there always talk that they were going to revert to that policy in the run-up to the Rugby World Cup. And talking about post 2020, apparently we're supposed to hear this week as to what the strategic direction of Super Rugby is going to be, and I can see Ashwin shaking his head already. This one's going to go downhill. We have plenty of rabbit holes to head down and plenty of tangents to head off in. So this one's going to be this one's going to be a classic question. Where do you think Super Rugby will be expanding to in 2020?
It won't be. It's just like, hello. Surely you only have to look back a year to see you don't expand Super Rugby. Otherwise, it doesn't. You might as well just drop the Super part. What they will do, I suspect, is that they'll start to look at more like with the games going to the islands, where franchises will take games around the world. And maybe that will happen. If they do expand in terms of teams, all they're asking for is the same trouble that they had before.
Well, they've already said that they are looking at expanding.
Oops.
Well, they said they're looking at expanding, but they might keep it to 15. But if they do keep it to 15, they might not have the same teams. Yeah. In which case, obviously, the inference there is that the Sunwolves in particular would be asked to head out the door. The
Really, I think it's the complete opposite. I think it's become, especially for Australia and New Zealand, because South Africa, it's only a matter of time before they will be out of Sansa and Super Rugby, because it just doesn't make sense from an economic perspective that they should play in the Southern Hemisphere. They should be much better off in Europe, and that door is already open. So for Australia and New Zealand in the future, they need to align themselves with Asia, and their first stop is Japan, of course. So I see that Sunwolves is only the beginning, because especially if South Africa leaves, who's going to pay the bills for New Zealand and Australia? It's only Japan who can do that.
Well, yeah, from what I've read, I mean, I thought that the Cheetahs and the Kings was the start of seeing South Africa move up north and exiting itself from Sansa. But it does seem like that at least for the next TV deal, we are going to see the Rugby Championship stay the way it is. So South Africa are going to stay in Sansa. They're not going to extricate themselves entirely.
I think so. Sorry for interrupting there, but
Yes.
also because the Lions tour is coming to South Africa 2021, so you want to keep like the same structure in place. But I guess it's after the World Cup 2023 that we might see some real big changes. Because I think also the deal South Africa already now have with Pro 14 is to 2023.
And I was just going to add, there's the Greekers team, I think it was, and there's two teams from South Africa that have also now started to play in European competitions as well, wasn't it?
They want to. I mean,
They want to.
But what's more of a problem for Super Rugby is that I think both Lions and Bulls is on the record too that they would like to transfer to Pro 14. Because it's just going to be more money for them. All the games going to be in primetime TV. It makes so much sense for them to play in Europe.
Well, I think the Lions and the Bulls have missed the boat. If they wanted to do it, they had to go. They should have jumped when the Kings and the Cheetahs did, and because of they're scared to dip their toes in the water, they've missed that boat. So what you're looking at, because it would involve either the Cheetahs or the Kings coming back into Super Rugby, and I can't really see that happening. So the Griquas and the Pumas are the two teams that have been talked about heading up into the Anglo-Welsh Cup or the Anglo-Irish Cup, the sort of tier below Aviva Premiership. So we'll see if that does come about. At the moment, we will have to see. But yeah, can South Africa really support 8 professional teams? We look at the Kings at the moment. They've won one game all season in the Pro 14. Now, I know they lost their entire squad. They built a squad in 2 weeks. Their coach didn't know if he was going to be coaching or not until about 2 weeks before the competition. It was a disastrous start. And so they were never going to do anything this year, to be honest. But yeah, just do they have enough players for 8 teams? I'm not sure personally, but we'll have to see.
I agree with that, Paul. They don't have for 18, but I think South Africa's long-term game is to move all the Super Rugby teams to Europe.
Well, we'll have to see. I thought that was going to be their long-term game, but we'll have to see how that all pans out.
But to come back to your question, because with Japan already now, it's already like the third richest domestic league in the world. Already having Japan at the top league. I mean, I think New Zealand Rugby Union and Rugby Australia would need to work like a lot more hands-on with the Japanese union and also with some of the Japanese companies owning these clubs. But it's obvious there's like massive growth to be made in Japan.
There is massive potential in Japan. The problem they have is that they've got their structure all wrong.
Yeah, okay. But that's what I mean. We need more of a hands-on approach.
But so basically, what we saw with the Super Rugby expansion into Argentina and into Japan. So with Argentina, it was clearly a planned process. They knew what they were doing. They knew it was going to happen. They contracted players. They contracted staff. They got themselves in the right position. In Japan, what we saw was, right, we have an amateur union who has no money. We have, as you say, the third or whatever it is, richest or third or fourth richest league in the world. And you've got a union going, how can we get some money and some control? I know, we can get a Super Rugby franchise. And they just went and got a Super Rugby franchise with absolutely zero plan, with no communication with the top league over there. and expected the top league just to release players that they could use for free, which was an absolute farcical situation to be in, and which is why they nearly got thrown out of the league before it even started, because they couldn't put a team together, because they were total amateurs and had made a bunch of assumptions that were just blatantly never going to work. So first off, what needs to happen is, one, the Japanese rugby union needs to professionalize and have proper professional administrators. Two, they need to work with the top league, not against them, not trying to wrestle control, which means they need to let the top league invest in the Super Rugby franchise. They need to then say, our end goal is, in 12 years, whatever it is, to actually have 6 teams or 5 teams in Japan, of which each top league team gets to own half. So we'll match 2 top league teams to each Super Rugby, Super Rugby sides. They will get something like a third ownership each, and the union will have a third ownership. So you have a third, and basically those two top league teams will feed the Super Rugby team, and set that kind of structure up. But they are a million miles away from there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree. We are a million miles, but this is also the bigger reason for New Zealand rugby and also Rugby Australia to have a much more hands-on approach from Japan. Obviously, I understand with some culture thing, you cannot go in and tell a Japanese person do this and do that, because they will think they lose their honor. But all these things are things you can work through. Also, because the major thing, that the bottom line is still, it's a massive market. I mean, there's one favorite number a lot of people love to come back to is the viewing figures for Japan against Samoa in the last World Cup in Japan. Is it 21 million viewers? It's by far the most viewed rugby event ever in the world in one single country. I mean, that's like everything is peaking in the perfect, but it shows for really very potential. There is potential.
Absolutely, there is potential, but at the moment, the first thing they need to do is professionalize that administration, and they're not showing any signs of even trying to do that. They're 2 or 3 years in, and they still think they can run it as an old boys club who are part-timers or just doing it for free tickets, and that's not what you need. We've seen in the ARU that actually, you know what, having rugby guys just come through and try to be sports administrators doesn't work. Hence, they've gone out and got themselves a lady who is a sports administrator through and through. She's done netball. She's been in rugby league. She's been in multiple sports, and she knows what sports administration is about. It's a unique style of business. Just because you've been successful in business doesn't mean you're going to be successful in sports. Just because you've been a successful player doesn't mean you're going to be successful in administration. So yeah, you need someone with that, and that's really what I think they need up in Japan. But I say, know what they've not grasped the nettle, they don't realize it, and they're nowhere. So
what about sort of in terms of, like, it seems like everybody seems to think that the pot of gold is the US. You know, taking the games over there. You know, but that's the way that there's a lot of administrators around that are thinking that the pot of gold is in the US, and expansion into the US and taking rugby to the US.
Now, again, there's another country, well, a biggest financial market in the world. The potential there, again, is massive. So hence, you've got South Africa going to play Wales in Washington, D.C. You've got, there's another game in June. I forgot which one it is now. I think Scotland's going over there to play some games. Obviously, we've had the All Blacks and the Wallabies both play over there in recent years as well, on their way to November tests. So yes, there is potential there. There is a big market. There is money to be made. So, but the problem there is distances and the amount you're going to have to invest. Currently, and also administration again. The USA Rugby Union has unfortunately spun off and given themselves put the commercial arm into a venture called RIM, Rugby International Marketing, which is losing money. They've gone and decided, hey, we don't have enough rugby on TV, so we'll set up our own rugby channel, and then we'll watch the other sports channels, buy the rights for the rugby, and we'll have nothing to show, but we'll still expect to charge lots of money for people to subscribe. So that's losing money hand over fist. And then their first attempt at doing a professional rugby league was an absolute farce, as we saw with pro rugby, where one guy ran it and then threw his toys out the pram and walked away. So he just didn't pay his bills. Now, thankfully, the guy who oversaw all those three things has left. Unfortunately, he's now at the RFU, trying to sort out the Rugby Championship. And yeah, from what I've heard, that isn't going so well. So they've got a new guy in. They've recently told RIM they have, I think it is 4 weeks to either be wound down, show a way they'll be profitable, or get themselves bought. I can't remember if it's RIM or the Rugby Channel. So there is a big shake-up on the commercial side in the US about to happen, which can only be good because, as I say, it just wasn't going anywhere. And the union needs the commercial side to generate revenue to be able to invest in the sport. And by hiving it off and have it as a loss-making wholly owned subventure really was not a good sign. But this is also why you hear the people who are talking about buying I don't know if they actually bought it, or they're talking about buying the Warriors are talking about hosting a Super Rugby team in Hawaii. It's the best time zone for New Zealand and Australia, from best American time zone. The shortest travel. You've got all the Polynesian influence. So the perfect place in some ways to have an American Super Rugby side. There's talk, obviously, of a Super Rugby side coming out of Fiji as well. And Argentina are saying they need 2 Super Rugby sides to maintain enough internationals for their national team. So those, to me, are the 3 most credible at the moment places to expand, because you have to expand in 3s. And Sanzar have realised that having 4-4-5-5 didn't work, but having 6-6-6 could work. So if, say, Fiji were to join the Australian conference, Hawaii were to join the New Zealand conference, and the second Argentinian side were to join the Africa's conference, that would actually make for a much more feasible way of growing the conferences. And it's time for you guys to talk. I'm going to get a dry mouth from just doing such a big long monologue.
No, you kept on going and going. But I don't. First of all, let's look at the thing about going to the United States. Okay, Hawaii is like much closer, but I don't see that as a go area for Super Rugby. Really, there's going to be another Argentina, and for rugby to grow big in the United States, it's a pipe dream. The other thing is about the Pacific Islander team. Oh, sorry, you want?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the Hong Kong one out of those 3 is the longest shot.
Hong Kong is realistic.
Why?
I say.
Sorry, Hong Kong is realistic because Hong Kong actually has a fully professional national team.
Oh, so we ranked 28th in the world also. So we're not great, but we at least have something to build on, and we have a lot of like rugby in the Hong Kong schools too. It's like a huge school sport in Hong Kong. So there is something to build on there.
So I think Hong Kong is probably more viable than Hawaii. But yeah, you're looking at one of those, and Fiji then would obviously fit into the New Zealand conference quite comfortably. And who wouldn't want a weekend away to Fiji to watch a game of rugby?
Hawaii was good too. Hey, no, but is the money there in Fiji to be able to support a team?
No,
That's the problem.
There isn't. That's still going to
There
be
isn't.
the problem. It's always going to be the issue. I mean, for me, I want to test an idea of you on you two guys here that I've been thinking about.
Test away. I'll be a guinea pig.
How to actually make some money for Pacific Island rugby. I mean, we have tried it twice before when we did the Pacific Islander team. You know, we did the one tour against Southern in 2004, which actually was a little bit of a success, really good games. And then we did it again in 2008, and it was not a success at all, and players say we didn't want to. This idea has sort of been killed off because, it wasn't exactly a success when we toured Europe, and also like some of the Islander boys said, now we want to represent Tonga, Samoa, or Fiji.
Yep.
But now, if the choice is to never play the All Blacks or play the All Blacks twice every year, but do it as the Pacific Islanders, I think the choice for them would be very easy. I mean, couldn't you include a Pacific Islander team in the Rugby Championship, because here comes the thing. There is this rule in the, that from the World Rugby has that actually make all the clubs in Europe have to release their players for the Rugby Championship. So they could actually pick the best Pacific Islander players for that tournament.
Okay, that rule works fine whilst the player is happy to be released, and sometimes because of their contracts, they basically get told if you're released, you're not getting paid, and so they can't afford to be released for those games. So I don't think that yeah, I don't think they would get the players.
I mean, come on, Paul. It's about playing power, because if the 30 best Pacific Islander player decides, no, we're going to go and play.
No, it would be.
These are star players. You can't punish all the star players. I mean,
no, we see it. We see it now. Even with the World Cup, there were actually a couple of players that you know, the owners of the clubs up in Europe had the chat with the players and said, "Oh, no, yeah, you might be jeopardizing your contract by going to play for your national team in the World Cup." We see it as a small nation within the soccer, where players get spoken to by their clubs, who are the rich owners and the benefactors of their club, talking to the players, saying, you don't really want to go play for your national country. So I understand what you're saying about player power, but, you know, I think money talks, unfortunately. It's just the world we live in.
Well, but here comes the next thing. It's interesting because I think if you could actually assemble like the top 30 Pacific Islander players to a Pacific Islander team who's going to play the All Blacks and the Wallabies, I think those games would be very popular.
Oh, look, no doubt about it. I think you get the quality of player into the team.
You get the quality of the players. The problem it is money. All right. If we look at the players that are heading overseas pre-Rugby World Cup from New Zealand, if we look at them, so we're looking at Sopoaga, Fekitoa, Kano's going to go. We've got Charlie Naitai going. So basically, if you look at all of those players, they're all of Pacifica origin. Okay, and it's a financial issue because they are expected to support their families a lot more than the European heritage or the New Zealand heritage players. And this is not trying to be. This is a cultural thing. This is not.
You white guy being racist again.
No,
the best example. No, the best example of that is Charles Piutau. Obviously, I mean, you know, basically had all but given the signature on the paper. Got this massive offer out of Europe, and it's just like, well, hey, that's not just me set up. That's my family set up for life, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And he just
well, actually, no, he had signed the piece of paper. He just hadn't returned it. He'd even signed a piece of paper, but yeah. So legally, he was fine doing what he did. But the financial pressure on these players is massive because of that, and they are not going to earn. Doesn't matter how popular those three or those four international games are. They will never get the same wage from playing internationally that they will get from playing in Europe and playing.
Hey, the other elephant in the room. There's another elephant in the room with the Pacific Island teams, like Samoa, Tonga, well, Samoa and Fiji in particular. Is the fact is that the French clubs and the English clubs are picking them up at the age of 17, and they're becoming eligible for France and England. So you're going to start seeing the actual top grade players are actually, and it's happening already, right? It's already happening. You're seeing guys that have been picked up early doors out of Samoa and Fiji. They're now playing for France and England.
Yeah.
No, so not that many. It might happen.
No, it'll happen.
It's happening now.
It's happening, Human. It's they've got scouts that are going into the schools there.
Yeah, the French academies are full of Pacifica people players, unfortunately. It's great for those that are successful. For those that aren't successful, it can be an absolute disaster, unfortunately. So anyway, but yeah, so I can't see. Also, I think it's a bit like if you look at British football, England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, Northern Ireland, Wales staunchly fight to stay separate, and I think you'll find in Pacifica Islands that whilst from the outside they look they can appear to be a culture, but they are vastly different cultures, and I think they're very proud about playing separately. And I think they'll trying to get them to play together.
Paul, I think you misunderstand. This is not about taking away their national teams. They're still going to have their national teams, but this is only during the Rugby Championship
Window.
they're going to come together. During that window, we're going to come together because also this is what the idea comes from the beginning. This would actually be one of the few ways you can actually make money out of Pacific Island rugby. I mean, but this is like the big question all the time: how to make money out of them. And this is how. This is how, and you want to shoot it down right away. I mean, come on, a little bit belief here for the Islander.
No, I don't have any. No, again, it'll be seen as the first stepping stone to losing their national identities, which is exactly why there wasn't a Team GB football team in the Olympics for so long, and until the Olympics was held in London, that was the only time they've ever had it.
I'll give you a good example. Yeah. Give you a good example, Paul. West Indian cricket really starting to fall apart. Might come back again, but just that internal fighting between the different countries. This has become so political.
But how are we going to make money for the Islanders then?
Transfer fees.
I mean, the thing. If you speak like real cross, like if the devil's advocate, what do we got the Islanders that people are ready to pay for? They got some serious talent. We want to see that talent come. We want to see that talent come together. We want to see them push the All Blacks. That's what we pay money for.
I mean,
that's one of the few things people are actually ready to give money for.
No, you're right in the fact that it's throwing an idea on the whiteboard, for using a corporate term, and you're right in terms of look. There has to be strategizing again, corporate speak. But in terms of how do you generate an income for those island teams so they can become stronger and to develop the players, because we know they're a factory. People talk about New Zealand being a factory for rugby players. The islands can be just as much a factory for rugby players if the right support structures are put in place, if the money invested there, if the money isn't fraudulently utilized, which we see happening over there as well. So there's a lot of dynamics. You're right. I suppose Paul and I have been a little bit on the negative, but it's built on the fact that there's so many of these things that have been tried in the past, and we've just seen how something's come along to basically scupper it, and sabotage is probably a better word. There's so many things that come along to sabotage them.
But I think that there are a couple of things that do give us hope. Now, one of them was, if we go back to the Rugby World Cup in France, where we saw Tonga get sponsored by Paddy Power, and one of the players actually changed his name to Paddy Power, and then dye their hair green. I mean, they were so thankful for having that sponsorship, and that support. And it was yes, it's a sponsorship, yes, it's the money, but it's also the support that someone would actually step up and put their money where their mouth is and actually support them. That's why they were willing to go the whole hog and buy totally into it. And if you listen to Ben Ryan when he was talking about the Fiji franchise, he said that he already had several international kit sponsors and other people who were willing to go in there with the money and make it happen. So,
but no one has ever backed those statements up. He said it once and then it just disappeared.
No, but
no one has ever come
back. I was just going to go on the back of that Ben Ryan comment, Paul. Sorry, but just like Ben Ryan was doing fantastic things for the Fijian Sevens team, and then the administration there basically go and stuff things up. So you never got to see because Ben Ryan's got a big name in obviously in Sevens rugby. He's got pulling power. He can get those companies. He can get them on board. You got to utilize a Ben Ryan, and instead they ended up moving him along.
Well, yeah, he criticised some of the things that happened after he left, and at which point the Fijian union do not take criticism very well, and hence they threw their toys out the pram. And that's why also when he was talking about the Super Rugby franchise, he was talking about it being an independent thing away from the union, because again, the embezzlement of funds, the fact that money doesn't reach the places where it's supposed to. Now, one of the things that World Rugby is doing is saying, look, you have to have audited accounts if you want to get your seat on the council, and so they are trying to use a carrot to lead these unions into having better accounting structures and become more mature organizations, rather than, as I was talking about with the Japanese one, where you've got guys in there who just there for the free tickets and there for the free ride. and there for the glory of being the head of the union. I'm sure this is going to totally destroy any chance I've got of getting free tickets to an invite up to Japan.
World Cup
Anyway,
in Japan.
Oh, dear, I'm just throwing it out the window.
This is like
reputation.
So, but as you say, we talk the truth. But hey, this is the fans.
That's what we do.
Actually, what I need to do is I need to get a little stander built here, and I could say, fans from the stands with the stands the bleachers. Have a little bleacher that I do the podcast from. What a fantastic! Oh wow. Okay, sorry. Park. That's one side, and we'll go away and build my studio later. Where was I? So yeah, there are the commercial groups out there. I mean, someone like Skins, for example, I could see being a sort of company that would get involved in that kind of thing. And I think they would get the sponsorship, because if we look at the amount that the Cheetahs have revitalized and created interest in the Pro 14, bringing a Fiji side, and look at how the Fiji side in the NRC totally raised the interest level in that. That actually a Fiji side or a Pacific Islander side based out of Fiji in Super Rugby, everyone would watch those games.
Here's your team,
and they would get there would be everyone's second favorite team, and so people would just be wanting to sponsor them because everyone would buy their jerseys, everyone would watch them, and yeah, absolutely, there'd be a sponsor's dream.
But that's actually a good point. The old Fiji team in the NRC. You're talking about expansion in 2020, which then they talk about expansion. It'll be 2021 sort of thing, whatever. But that gives that Fiji team in the NRC time to actually build, develop, and become a strong team, and then migrate into the Super Rugby competition.
Yeah,
and that'll keep him.
And that's what's so important about this, is that whatever the plan is they come up with, is they've got to spend 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is, however long they've got, building that team up. Don't put it out to tenders and say, we'll choose the team 6 months before the tournament starts. No. Make the decision now, make it quick, and get them building, build the administration side of it up, get them proper facilities to train in, get them proper, and put an academy in place now, so that you can even have some local players who have come through the academy who are ready to start, and make it happen. And now if for Fiji, the Fiji Jura are the academy side for the Fiji Super Rugby team, fantastic. Now with Argentina, you've got the Jaguares. What you're going to do is you're going to split the Jaguares in half and add a few more players, so you can see how they can plan and build that side out. It's that third team that's in Hong Kong, that's in Hawaii. How are they going to build and not just be an absolute shambles like the Sunwolves were for the first 2 years? That's the real challenge.
Yeah, but that's not. I don't think we have even time to start talking about that, because if you break down like the Sunwolves, the strategy behind the expansion, if you show what the Suns have done to anyone working in American sports or even Australian sports, they would think we were joking with it. Is that how you're going to release this expansion team? I mean, first of all, we got zero help with players. We're going to mingle with the toughest boys in the toughest competition in the world. And no, but you take care of the players. We don't worry about that. And like extra, by the way, you're going to fly like 4 times more than any other teams in the competition. But they put them up in the air like more than any other team. And that's like an extra bonus to the Sunwolves. Oh, by the way, you're going to play free home games in Singapore too. Yeah! I mean, if you look,
I really can't see what your problems are. What are your complaints? Where's all this going on?
Imagine showing up to someone working with American pro sport. They will think you were joking. Like, what? No. This is not how you do it.
Absolutely, and that's what I say. I think that what we saw with the Japan one was we saw an amateur organisation see an opportunity for them to grab some power, to grab some money, rather than being a properly thought out bid. It was somebody thinking, oh hey, if we have Super Rugby, we can it'll give us power, it'll give us money, and we'll gain control. And blatantly, it didn't. It was a total farce of a build. But as you're right, we have chatted on for way too long about these sort of things. And whilst it is great and fun enjoying talking to you guys, we have to start trying to wrap this up. And let's run through our predictions for the games that are coming up this next weekend. First off, Friday night, Chiefs versus the Highlanders. What's your prediction, Herman?
Chiefs against Highlanders. Highlanders by 3. I got it back. Highlanders. They got undone by some like terrific scoring by the Hurricanes.
Arshwin?
Yeah, we keep. I'm going to go the Highlanders by 7. Yeah, it's a tough call because the Chiefs guys keep standing up, but they shouldn't. They're in such a predicament. They're just lost another player for the season as well. Dominic Bird just lost him for the season as well, and it's just like players keep dropping, but they keep standing up. But I just can't see it carrying on all the time. Yeah, but so anyway, I'm going Highlanders by 7.
Home advantage has been massive during this tournament this year, and so I'm going to back the Chiefs by 5. The Chiefs are the only side to have beaten a New Zealand side at home or away kind of thing. When they beat the Blues. Every other New Zealand side has won all their home games so far. So so I'm backing the Chiefs by 5. I think you're both absolutely doolally guys. Next up, the Rebels host the Hurricanes. Arshwin?
We find out if the Rebels are the real deal, if they're going to be competitive at the business end of the season. At this stage of the season, I'm going to go the Hurricanes, and I think they'll do it by 10.
Herman?
Yeah. It's probably the first time I'm pumped to see a New Zealand team play an Aussie team in like 3 years in Super Rugby.
Yeah, good point.
A Rebels team who lost away to the Waratahs after giving up a massive lead. But yeah, feel free. Go for it, Herman.
No. I'm not. No, I'm going to go for Hurricanes by 7. I think the Rebels are actually going to make a fight of it, but they will not win.
Again, I think home advantage will mean that the Rebels keep it relatively close. I'm going Hurricanes by 5, but I can't see the Rebels winning it. Heading off into Saturday, we have the Blues versus the Sharks.
Blues by 20.
Ooh, yeah.
Archwin's been on the happy pills again.
I go Blues by 15.
I go Blues by 10. Brumbies versus the Waratahs, in perhaps the most intriguing game of the weekend, seeing the return of Pocock.
Is he playing full game or is he coming off the bench? Do we know?
They've not selected the side yet. We do know he's back for this game.
Okay.
Come on, Archwin.
I didn't see the Brumbies play last week. Did they have a bye anyway?
Yes, they did.
They did, yes. I'm going to go the Waratahs. I think obviously they had that good game against Rebels. They backed that up with their game plan of high ball to Falau. They should get home over the Brumbies. I know we talk about the home advantage, etc., but the Brumbies just haven't shown me anything this year. So, yeah, I'm going with the Waratahs. But I'll pick them by 3, which, as we've spoken about before, basically means it's a lottery on who will win.
It all comes down to that's the ball. Herman?
I go for Pocock's boys by 3 points.
Same here. I'm going Brumbies by 3 because home advantage and Pocock coming back. Also, they won't have Hodge at fullback. They'll have someone who can actually catch the ball, which always helps. We then head over to South Africa for the Bulls versus the Stormers. Herman, kick us off.
I like them Stormers. I think Stormers looks better. I think it's time for them to snatch. I mean, they're terrible in tour outside South Africa. That's a like golden rule about the Stormers. Inside South Africa, they can actually play. So yeah, I'm gonna go Stormers by 5.
I wasn't sure whether you were talking about the Stormers or the Bulls because again, the Bulls on tour are absolutely awful, and at home they can play as well. Arshwin?
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with the Bulls. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Bulls by 10 actually.
I'm backing the Bulls at altitude by 3. And if the final game of the round, the Lions versus the Crusaders.
All right. I have actually a sneaky feeling that the Crusaders are going to teach the Lions a lesson. So I'm going to go Crusaders by 18.
18 on the road?
18.
Yeah,
On the road.
Wow.
They're
So we're
gonna
talking
teach
bonus
them
point
a lesson.
territory here.
Yes. They're gonna
Yeah,
teach them a lesson.
I was going to go Crusaders by 15. So yeah, I'm of the same opinion. The Crusaders actually are one of the teams that seem to relish the road trips. They seem to bond well on their road trips, and there's something that the road trips bring it out on them. You go back to, I know it's going back a while now, but when they did have all the earthquakes and they had the away games in London and that, and it really did sort of galvanize them as a team. Seems to work for them, and that Lions team basically on the back of 3 poor performances. Yeah, Crusaders by 15.
So the Lions, so the Crusaders, who have not won away from home all season, travelling to the Lions at altitude. So I'm backing the Crusaders by 3. I think it'll be a lot closer than you are, but I do think the Crusaders will win it. Yes. So there we go. There are 2 rules in Super Rugby for picking. 1, always pick the New Zealand side. If you have 2 New Zealand sides, then always pick the home side, and you're not going to go far wrong.
I thought you were going to say.
Auckland, as I've been told by lots of Kiwis, that actually I've not been to New Zealand if I just stay in Auckland. It's not until you get outside of Auckland that you see the real New Zealand, and so hence the Blues aren't really a proper New Zealand side, unlike the other ones. As I say, as you'll have seen, we're having pumpkin growing competitions down here in New Plymouth at work. That's real New Zealand, not talking about your espressos and your lattes from Starbucks up in. And you head up in
Starbucks.
I was trying to think of who to mention in Auckland. I had to grab for that. Maybe who else is? I've gone blank. Columbus Coffee. No. Maybe. There we go. Also up in Auckland.
But also, there's a rule number 3 to a betting rule about Super Rugby also.
Oh, whoa. We said picking, not betting. Let's be clear. It's not about betting. It's about picking.
Picking.
Picking. Okay.
We don't promote gambling on this site on this channel.
Rule number 3 is, of course, if the Blues is playing a Kiwi side, always play against the Blues.
As we're saying, the Blues aren't really a Kiwi side when you're doing these when you're using these rules. So there we go.
I'll just wait till we tip the apple cart over.
Thank you so much, boys, for joining me. We only had 3 questions tonight, but we still filled out the hour more than comfortably with our lovely tangents. So, Herman, thank you very much for joining me. Obviously, there's no point telling anyone where to talk to you during the week because you are the social media ghost. You don't really exist. But thank you very much for joining me. And Ashwin, why don't you let people know where they can have a chat with you during the week about all things rugby and New Zealand politics?
At NZFatso on Twitter, and I'll see you there.
Absolutely. And I've been Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul. Always up for good old rugby chats. Please feel free to put your comments down below or get a hold of me at DrivingMaul on Twitter. There is a picture there, so please do subscribe either through that or the red button below. Give it the thumbs up and all that kind of stuff as well. It's much appreciated. My latest videos there, so do watch some more stuff. And obviously, if you're listening to the podcast, give us a 5-star review, please. I just love 5 stars. It's just suits my complexion. 4 stars is just not bright enough. So thank you very much, and enjoy whatever rugby you're watching this weekend.